enjoy. They especially will be helpful to you when you are studying in social studies next year about, first of all, World War II, and then also some of the conflicts that are going on right now that maybe some people don't consider a war, or they're not very popular wars that we hear a lot about, but they are still going on. And I want to tell you about those books. I hope that all of you come in to the library next year when we start off the new year, and I hope this summer you are off at the library, in the public library, getting books to read also. These 3 books that I'm going to be talking about today are excellent books for summer reading. Someone named Eva. Hi, my name is Eva. Wait a minute. It's not Eva. It's Mola. Oh, I can't remember. It's getting harder and harder to remember. Oh, wait. I have my pendant that my grandmother gave me. She told me if I held on to my pendant and held it very, very hard, I would never forget. That's right. My name is Milana. Oh, it happened a long time ago. Almost 3 years ago. They came to our village in Czechoslovakia. You know, our town had already surrendered to Hitler. They had already taken over, but they came in one night in the dark. I was planning my birthday, and they came in the dark, and they took all of our family away. We couldn't understand what was happening. That's when my grandmother, she gave me the pin, and she told me to hold it very tight in my hand so I wouldn't forget. I'm starting to forget now. The reason I'm starting to forget was they took me, Melania, away, and they put me in a school, and they wanted to turn me into one of them, a Nazi. You know why? Because I had blonde hair and blue eyes. They wanted me to be one of them, what they called a perfect nation. Well, they took me away, and they put me in a school, and the first thing they said to me was, "Your name is no longer Melania. It's Eva. That's a German name. No longer can you have your Czechoslovakian name." Oh no. Well, maybe they can rename my name, but I'm always going to remember it in my mind, Melania, so I don't forget where I am. Then they told me, never, ever speak another word of the language that I had grown up learning. They said the only thing you could speak was German, because now you're a German girl. No longer are you a Czechoslovakian girl. Oh no, would I ever see my family again? How could these people take me away from everything I knew? Make me forget everything I ever learned and turn me into one of them, just because I have the perfect blonde hair and the perfect blue eyes. What would you do if someone took you away from your family, taught you everything new, made you forget your name? What would you do? Would you run away? Would you be able to find your family? Would your family even come and find you? That's what happened then. Someone named Eve. The story, Someone Named Eva, by Joan Wolfe, is a story of a young girl who actually, based on historical fact, it's based on historical fact, but it's fiction. A girl was taken at a young age of 11, and she was taken away from her family, and she was turned into a German because of her eye color and her hair. I wonder what will happen to her and her family now. If you want to find out, read this gripping, wonderful novel of how this girl survives and see if she ever does get back to her family. That is Someone Named Eva. Okay, our first book was a girl's perspective of World War II. and the Hitler movement. Our second book today that I'm going to talk about is a boy who's a German boy who should be just fine. It's his perspective of Hitler and World War II. This is the story, The Boy Who Dared. It was Tuesday in 1942. That was the day that the executioner came through the jail. He walked through the jail and you waited. You waited for a knock on your jail door because that was the day someone was going to die. My name is Helmut, and I am the boy in the book, The Boy Who Dared. My story starts off with me in jail, awaiting my execution. This is how it all happened. Back when I was a younger boy, Hitler and his Nazis came into Germany. Germany was really, really in bad shape at that time because they had just gone through World War I, and they were having to repay some of the countries that they invaded. So Germany was poor. People didn't have jobs, food was scarce, and people were getting desperate. Then, in comes Hitler. And Hitler says to the German people, "Don't you worry, German people. I'm going to give everybody a job. All the Germans are going to be working. Everybody's going to have a job. Everybody's going to have food. We're going to be a great German country again. It's going to be wonderful." The people who were out of work, out of food, thought Hitler was the answer to their prayers. And so they elected. They brought Hitler in. And everybody in Germany was happy, glad. But then things started to happen. Well, when I was in school, there used to be these men that would come into school. And they started writing down things about you. They had a book, and in that book was your name. And then they started to make us lift up our hands and say, "Hail Hitler." I didn't like that. I mean, Hitler was okay, but I'm not sure about it. And now I'm supposed to put my hand up and say, "Hail Hitler" to him? And guess what? If I didn't do that, they wrote down my name in that book. And then if I wrote a paper, and I happened to say something about Hitler and his Nazis that maybe I didn't like, they wrote that down in the paper. Then they came into our school and they said, "Okay, all boys, you are going to be in Hitler's youth movement." It's kind of like Boy Scouts. That's the way it starts out. But when the boys started to get 12, 13 years old, they became one of Hitler's soldiers. That's how it all started for me and my family. Well, the first thing that started to bother me was I started to notice people, especially the Jews, those Nazis that came in, they were treating them terrible. You know, they were even starting to take them out of their homes, take their stores away, and they went away and we never saw them again. And then they started telling me, a German, they started telling me, no more listening to a radio station outside of Germany. And then they said, no more listening to any radio station. You get all your news from us and only us. Well, I really didn't like that. But I especially didn't like them coming in and telling me, "You're going to be in the Hitler movement." I wasn't interested. I didn't want to be. But you know what? If I didn't, they'd write my name down in that book. You know, people's names that got written in those books, sometimes they went away and didn't ever come back. So I kind of went along. And then one day, after they said no more radios, my brother comes home with a radio. And he stashes it in the closet and he says, "Don't get this out. If they catch you with it, you'll be in big trouble." What do you think he did? He took it out. He took it out because he was wondering. He heard Germany was going into this country and that country and they were victorious and everybody was great. And he started to wonder, is that true? And so late at night he would sneak that radio out and he would get in his room and he'd listen very carefully. He'd turn the knob and he would try to get a station from somewhere else. finally he started to get some stations from Britain. And he started to hear the reports. 1,000 Germans killed. Wait a minute. They've been telling us that Germany is winning. What is this? And so every night he gets up and he listens, knowing that if he's caught, that he will be thrown in jail. Well, he and his friends start thinking about all these other reports that they're hearing. And they decide, we're going to start warning the people. What these Nazis and these German Hitler's men are telling us are not true. We're going to start telling the people. We're going to start making up flyers. We're going to get in our rooms, make up flyers. The Nazis are lying. What they're saying is not true. And then late at night, we're going to go throw them in the square so that when people get up in the morning, they'll see them and they'll read them. But you know what? By doing that, it means that we're committing treason. Does anybody know what committing treason means? What does it mean to commit treason? Yeah.
That you do something that's against the country.
It's exactly right. You're going against your country. You are telling the country that you're not going to follow their rules, or kind of like you're spying or going against them in a certain way. Treason, people that commit treason are thrown in jail and sent on executed. Well, you know how my story starts. So you must realize what happens to me. If you'd like to find out what actually did happen to me, Helmut, you can read The Boy Who Dared by Susan Campbell Bartoletto. She is the author of this gripping story of a German boy who tells his story about World War II and the Nazi invasion. Be sure to check this one out. This is a fantastic book. This at one time was a Sunshine State book 2 years ago, and I think all of you will enjoy reading this novel. Someone before had asked me, was this one true? And we said it was what? What did you say, Jessica?
Historical fiction.
It was historical fiction. It was based on things that happened in history, but it wasn't actually true. The same is true with this story. It's based on historical fact, but fiction is thrown in there. The Boy Who Dared. Y'all, I want to tell you about my story. Well, my story is one that, you know, it's just my family. This is my family right here. I'm Jared. I'm the big brother in this family. And that's my mother. My mother, oh, she is always going for some cause. Whether it's raising money for the poor families in some other country, or she's doing a bake sale for the cheerleaders at our school, she's always doing good. And you know what? In this story, my story, Diamonds in the Shadows, my mom is once again being a do-gooder, but this time things turn serious. My name's Jared, and my mother, she decides that she's going to take in a refugee family from Africa. Do you know what a refugee family is? You know what a refugee is?
A family who comes over to the United States.
Okay, a family who comes over to the United States, why? Does anybody know what a refugee does? Yes. For freedom. They usually have been pushed out of their own country. Someone has taken over their own country, and now they don't have a home to go to. Well, my mother's taken in one of these refugee families. It's a family of four. A mom, a dad, a sister, and a brother. By the way, I'm in high school, and supposedly the brother is too. Well, everything seemed okay. We got to the airport to pick up the refugee family, and this is a picture of the refugee family. You know, they look like any ordinary family, and when I saw them at the airport, except for that girl, the girl in the family, everything looked kind of ordinary. We got to the airport, and really what looked normal wasn't. very quickly at the airport. We started to notice some strange things about these refugees. First of all, the dad, he always had his hands in his pocket. And all you could see was his shirt in his pocket. He wouldn't take them out. Even customs said, take them out. He couldn't. He didn't have any hands. His hands were gone. Something else was strange too. That boy, he came in, and the boy, the high school boy in this family, well, he had this big box, and he carried it around, and the customs said, put that down, and he said, no, sir. I can't put this down. I have to keep it close to me. Why? What's in that box? Oh, well, it's the ashes of my grandparents, so I can't put them down. What? Carrying around the ashes of your grandparents? Hi, this is for EM 535, Young Adult Literature. This is assignment 3, and my name is Judy Duff. The 3 books that I chose for my book talk were Someone Named Eva, and that one was by Joan Wolfe. The Boy Who Dared by Suzanne Campbell Bartoletta, and Diamonds in the Shadow by Carolyn B. Cooney. I chose all 3 of these books because they dealt with some aspect of war. 2 of the books dealt with World War II. The last book deals with a contemporary war in another culture, and that is the Diamond Wars in Africa. The reading level for Someone Named Eva was 4.8. The interest level would be middle school, grades 6 through 8. And this is a historical fiction book. The Boy Who Dared was a reading level of 4.3. Was also an interest level of grades 6 through 8, or middle school age. This is also historical fiction. And Diamonds in the Shadows, this was a 4.5. Also middle school students of interest would be grades 6 through 8. This book was the one chosen for its diversity, looking at other cultures and the aspects of war that they would have to deal with. This book would be somewhere between a contemporary fiction and a historical fiction book. As I stated earlier, I chose each of these books because they dealt with some type of or some aspect of war. The story Someone Named Eva was a girl who was affected by World War II in a very different way than other books that I've read. This one deals with a girl who is taken away from her family by Hitler's Nazis because of the color of her hair and the color of her eyes. Children were taken at this time, and they were sent to schools where they would be renamed into a German name. They would then be taught all German language, told to forget whatever they had learned before, and then they would be adopted by German families. And this was Hitler's hope, was to make the perfect nation. And this story, Someone Named Eva, was a young girl, a Czechoslovakian girl, who was taken into that Hitler's camps for children who he wanted to make into a perfect race. The second book was The Boy Who Dared, and this gave a viewpoint of World War II from a German boy who you would think it wouldn't affect, but it did. This was a boy, this was based on history, but it is historical fiction. A boy who, when Hitler came into power, he started to question what Hitler was doing, and he started to question the things that he saw. He began to question even more when they came into his schools and they wanted all of the boys, without choice, to be a part of Hitler's youth movement. And that's when his rebellion began, when he started to say, no, I'm not going to be a part of that. Then it goes on to talk about how the boy starts to hear other news than what's been given to the Germans at that time. And then he finds out that that the Germans are being told. He says, no, I can't do this anymore. It's wrong. I have to tell the people what is really happening. And he knows the consequences of his actions can mean imprisonment and ultimately death. The final story in this book talk was Diamonds in the Shadow. Now, this story does not deal with World War II, but I chose it because it took a look at another war and how it affects children. This dealt with the Diamond Wars in Africa, and it deals with a refugee family who comes over to the United States to live with an American family. Although it deals with some pretty heavy atrocities that are going on in that part of the world, it also, the author does a wonderful job of weaving in mystery and intrigue into the story, and a little bit of humor that would help the students enjoy this book. This is also the one that I chose as my diverse book. As far as props that I used props in 2 of the stories. In Someone Named Eva, I wore a head covering to kind of portray what a girl of that time might wear. And I also used in that story a locket. The girl was given a locket by her grandmother the night that the family was taken away. She was given a locket, and her grandmother told her to always hold on to that locket, and she would remember who she was. Then in Diamonds in the Shadows, I decided to use 2 props, actually 3 props. 2 were family photos. I chose a white family and an African family, and tried to help the children get an idea of these 2 families using those props. The other prop that I used was the box that one of the African refugees carried around with him at all times. He said it was a box with his grandparents' ashes in it, but that's where the mystery in the story begins and starts to intrigue the readers into what's actually going on, the mystery in this story, where you find out that this family isn't actually all that you think it is. As far as questions to draw the students in, for someone named Eva, students might think about, would they, after being taken away from their family, the first thing they're told is to to no longer call themselves the name that they were given, but to call themselves the German name, and Eva was told never speak her language again. And I would ask the students, do you think you, after 3 years of being indoctrinated by the German culture, would you be able to remember your name, and would you think there would be any hope of your family finding you after all this time? In The Boy Who Dared, I would lead the students into the story by thinking of the question, would you be willing to go against the rulers in your country? If you knew something was wrong, would you be brave enough, would you dare to go against them and tell people what actually is really happening in their world, even when you know it might lead to imprisonment or death? And finally, in Diamonds in the Shadows, I would ask the students to really think about what would happen if your family, took in another family from another culture with all their cultural differences. How would you react
to having that family come in and live with you and turn your world upside down.